Okay, good morning, and again, welcome to the 8th Annual ASU Poetry Festival. We've been having a phenomenal time thus far. If you've had a chance to experience Nico Giovanni on Sunday, you had a life-changing experience. Last night, Nikki Finney and Frank X. Walker shared some poetry with us that was just jaw-dropping. And then we got some good jazz and blues and singing and poetry yesterday with Hope Glover, and today we're about to wrap it up with our last featured poet, Dr. Lita Hooper. So we'll start with the occasion by Ms. Lila Willis, and then the introduction of the speaker, poet for the hour, by Mr. Felix Crumsby.
In her book, Performing the Word, Patricia Fahashima Brown describes the Black sermon, especially that of the Southern preacher, as a type of oral poetry or form of preachment, which partakes of the rich and vibrant tradition of the African American folk sermon in form, content, and social purpose. This morning, we are poised to experience such preachment that explores the historical experiences of women illuminating the past and giving political, social, and moral significance to our everyday lives. The poetic reflections of women poets tell the story and make it plain. From Phyllis Wheatley to Jill Scott and Erykah Badu, Black women poets create preachment as they address numerous concerns of the Black community. Through their poetic verse, these women narrativize, which Geneva Smitherman defines as a Black rhetorical strategy used to explain a point and to create word pictures about general, abstract observations about life, love, and survival. Historically, Black women poets stand in the tradition of such rhetorical strategizing. They convey universal messages about self-affirmation, self-love, and self-empowerment throughout their art as they offer listeners a sense of what the ideal could be. Their voices are more than critics of social and political unrest or our local conceptions of Blackness. Instead, their preachment emphasizes the importance of individual identity. It is a needs-based rhetoric. These artists see a need for transformation, and that the nature of the transformation is one that provides nourishment for weary souls and folks who frequently experience hopelessness. Today, Albany State is pleased to have with us one such voice, a strong Black female poet, one who champions the heroism and self-expression necessary to affirm life and speak positivity. In effect, she speaks her word. She speaks it very, very clearly, making it sure it has divine meaning and energy. Today, we pause and listen to the voice of Dr. Lita Hooper.
Good morning, everybody. In the preface to the book, Gathering Ground, a reader celebrating Cave Canon's first decade, Cornelius Eady comments on his studies in his MFA program at Warren Wilson College. About that experience, he states, "I didn't see myself. My life was not reflected in any of the writers that got discussed or were assigned. We simply didn't exist. And after a while, I had to start thinking, what does that mean about how they perceive me as a student? I don't exist on their level. I'm not there. They don't teach me. They don't teach me because they do not know me." Unfortunately, much of Eady's comments reflect the growing sense of invisibility that many peoples of color experience. Lita Hooper is a poet whose voice speaks to the void to which Eady refers by making the invisible visible as it bears the weight of lives full of struggle and loss. Her poetry uses rich and vivid images that retell historic moments and challenge the prevailing silences that surround much of the views of American and African American life. She is a poet, a playwright, and an educator, and her work has appeared in several anthologies, including Timptu Tumpu, Walking Naked, African Women's Poetic Self-Portrait, Crook's Conversations in Words and Images from South Africa to South USA, The Ringing Ear, Black Poets Lean South, Gathering Ground, a reader celebrating Cave Canon's first decade, Roll Call, a generational anthology of social and political Black literature and art. She is the author of 2 chapbooks, Legacy and Perspectives, respectively, and a critical biography, Art of Work, The Art and Work of Hakeem Abuti. Her work has also been published in online and print journals and magazines, including the Chattahoochee Review, Poetry Midwest, Drum Voices Review, Essence, The Drunken Boat, Reverie, and Pluck. She is a co-editor of 44 on 44 African American writers on the election of the 44th President of the United States. Her collection of poems, Thunder in Her Voice, The Narrative of Sojourner Truth, was recently published in 2010. In 2007, her poem, Love Worn, was selected for the American Life and Poetry series, a feature column of Ted Kooser, former U.S. Poet Laureate from 2004 and 2006. She is a recipient of the 2007 Emerging Artist Grant from the City of Atlanta's Office of Cultural Affairs. To borrow the words of Ted Kooser, former U.S. Poet Laureate, in many American poems, the poet makes a personal appearance and offers us a revealing monologue from center stage. But there are lots of fine poems in which the poet, a stranger in a strange place, observes the life of others from a distance and imagines her way into them. Lita Hooper is a great example of this kind of writing. Albany State University, please join me in welcoming to our 8th annual Poetry Festival, Dr. Lita Hooper.
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much. These are the most wonderful introductions I've ever had, literally. Thank you so much for having me. I am really, really happy to be here. I've heard great things about this festival for years, and so to be invited to participate, I'm just floored. I'm really happy to be here, and you guys are so lucky to have such a festival. And Professor Mack, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to do a couple of things today. I'm going to read a couple of poems, one or two from Thunder in Her Voice, and then one from my chapbook. And then I'm going to turn it over to the acting ensemble, who has graciously, under the direction of Professor Lambert, decided and agreed to read from my latest work, which will be released in February, based on two characters who lose family connection during Katrina. So I'll talk a little bit about that before I introduce them, but hopefully you will enjoy the performance. I know I have during rehearsal, and yeah, we'll go from there, okay? Good? Yep. All right. I'm gonna read, I guess I'll start with Thunder in Her Voice. I'm really interested in using history as a backdrop for poetry, but also infusing poetry in history. So I look for areas that I'm fascinated by, people, times, events, and then I look for the little areas within that period where I think that some voice has been ignored or silenced or maybe needs to be heard again. And my daughter, Sojourner, was born in 2001, and my husband and I decided to name her Sojourner after many ideas, other names. We actually stole that name from Dr. Manning Marable, whose daughter name is Sojourner and happens to live in Atlanta, who happens to live down the street from me. Very odd coincidence. But I was in Colorado for a while and worked with Dr. Marable and got to meet his children years ago, and I always kept in mind, wow, what a great name, Sojourner. And then I moved forward, got married, had a child, and I said to my husband, what about Sojourner? And he's like, that's a heavy name. Who wants to be named Sojourner? You know, who wants to be named after someone so iconic and big? And I said, well, that actually is a good reason to name her that. So we named her Sojourner, and we call her Soji, which is also what the other Sojourner's nickname is. And we go along, and she grows up, and she's this cute little Soji, and then we hit, I guess, somewhere around 8 or 9, where people would say, what does Soji mean? And she would say, oh, it's short for Sojourner. And she'd always said it with kind of like, So that made me realize she really does not appreciate this name. And and I need to do something about that. So I went back and read Sojourner Truth's autobiography, and it's a slave narrative, as most of you know. And it's a slave narrative. Sojourner Truth was illiterate, so she didn't write her own narrative. It was an as-told-to narrative, and the writer was Olive Gilbert, a white abolitionist. And as I read the narrative, just to kind of, get back into the history of her life, so I could talk to my Soji about her, I realized that, like most slave narratives, there are a lot of places where it just really skips over some major events. Like, wow, that happened, and that's all you have to say about it? And so that's when the poet in me said, I wonder what it would be like to take on that persona. What would this person say if they had space in this text? So I used the Sojourner Truth slave narrative to write Thunder in Her Voice. And what I did was I took excerpts wherever I felt that there were spaces or places where I needed more. And I used the excerpt on the left side of the page, and then I wrote the responding poem on the right side of the page. So it follows chronologically the slave narrative itself, but it tells the story, Sojourner Truth's story, through both the slave narrative and my poems. So I'm going to read a piece from it, the opening piece. I'll read the narrative excerpt, and then I'll read the responding poem. And one thing I'll tell you that Sojourner Truth changed her name to Sojourner Truth. She was named Isabella Baumfree. Among Isabella's earliest recollections was the removal of her master, Charles Ardenberg, into his new house, which he had built for a hotel soon after the decease of his father. A cellar under this hotel was assigned to his slaves as their sleeping apartment. All the slaves he possessed, of both sexes, sleeping, as is quite common in a state of slavery, in the same room. She shudders even now as she goes back in memory and revisits this cellar. Sleeping quarters. Here misery unfolds, hovers the way air weighs one down to sleep. We lay in quiet gratitude on thin wood and straw pallets, our breathing a testimony to another day's survival. Flanked by Baumfree and Mau Mau, I hold a patient pose as night's sound remind me of life's abundance. I search the darkened room, which is like the sky, spotted by the moon's mercy. Before I close my eyes, I follow God's direction, a silver streak breaking through the panes, pointing. Sojourner Truth bravely petitioned the courts to get her son back. Her son Peter was taken from her, and as was common during the slave era, but she felt that even within this system of slavery that they had broken the law, that they had taken her son Peter and moved him across the country, and actually he ended up on a ship. So she goes into battle with the court system. And so I found that remarkable, and I wrote about that. Let me find that excerpt for you. She walks and bravely petitions anyone to help her, but she ends up going to court, and she actually wins. She gets Peter back. Unfortunately, Peter does not know his mother by the time she is reunited with him, and he does not want to know her. So this is an excerpt from that section. When the pleading was at an end, Isabella understood the judge to declare, as the sentence of the court, that, quote, the boy be delivered into the hands of the mother. This sentence was obeyed. He was delivered into her hands, the boy meanwhile begging most piteously not to be taken from his dear master, saying she was not his mother, and that his mother did not live in such a place as that. They succeeded in convincing him that Isabella was not some terrible monster, as he had for the last months probably been trained to believe, and who, in taking him away from his master, was taking him from all good and consigning him to all evil. So this is Peter's lament. They say she is my mother, but what am I to do with a mother? I have my fine master, the sea and food. No need for mother love. Inside that house she waits, but how can I care for someone who is worth less than my good shoes? From ship to shore I have been recaptured to surrender my birth. No currency to speak of, just inherited agony, pulling me to the ranks I have grown to despise. Another thing that fascinated me, go on in. Another thing that fascinated me when rereading the narrative was you think about people like Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, and they're these huge people, and we know what they did, right? But we never really get into the interior of their lives. Like, did they ever fall in love? Now we know Frederick Douglass was married, and so, but I never heard about Sojourner Truth in terms of love, and I was surprised to find an excerpt about that. She falls in love with a man named Robert. This is before she escapes slavery. And there's very little about this relationship, but reading about her relationship with Robert led me to write about Robert in Robert's voice. I thought I would write about this in her voice, but I actually was more fascinated by Robert's story. As Isabella advanced in years, an attachment sprung up between herself and a slave named Robert. But his master, an Englishman by the name of Catlin, anxious that no one's property but his own should be enhanced by the increase of his slaves, forbade Robert's visits to Isabella and commanded him to take a wife among his fellow servants. One Saturday afternoon, hearing that Belle was ill, he took the liberty to go see her. Robert made his appearance, and the first people he met were his old and young masters. They both fell upon him like tigers, beating him with the heavy ends of their canes, bruising and mangling his head and face in the most awful manner, and causing the blood, which streamed from his wounds, to cover him like a slaughtered beast. This beating, and we know not what after treatment, completely subdued the spirit of its victim, for Robert ventured no more to visit Isabella, but like an obedient and faithful chattel, took himself a wife from the house of his master. This is Robert's answer. I took a beating for Belle, not 'cause I loved her, or wanted to prove all that I whispered in her ear each stolen night. Sometimes the silence in her eyes swallowed me like pride denied. But I learned to tread up, return to stale southern air, chance the distance from farm to farm, bear my sins in her ever welcome arms. I went down that day beneath white fists to answer my daddy years before as he waited for death. Will you be a man or a slave? So, Sojourner Truth was a really interesting journey. The book took me in places I never thought I would. My daughter still, to this day, does not like you to call her Sojourner, but that's okay. She's 13 now, and maybe one day she will embrace the name. But that led me to some other projects, and the next project was the Katrina project. When Katrina happened, many people came from New Orleans to Atlanta and became infused in our city, and there was lots of relief efforts, and we did all kinds of drives, and it was really overwhelming. And I was part of an arts community that helped artists from New Orleans especially, so that was really difficult. People lost instruments and, of course, equipment and so forth, so it was really difficult for them. And I kept thinking about how many families were torn apart during Katrina, how many people not only were dislocated individually, but lost family members and had to find each other. And it reminded me during Reconstruction, when African Americans were traveling throughout the South looking for family members now that they could move about and reconnect. And I thought how awful it must have been to not know where your daughter was or your father was. And so I came up with this story of twins, Veronique and Samantha, Sammy and Ronnie. And Sammy and Ronnie are in New Orleans during Katrina, and their father, who was a widower, and in grieving their mother's death has taken to alcohol. And the day that it hits, the day that the Ninth Ward fills up with water, they're forced to a rooftop, and then because their father is so despondent, he sends them off when the helicopters come. And so the girls are taken away from him. He ends up in Chicago, and they end up in Atlanta. When they get to Atlanta, because the girls, 17-year-old twins, are so different, Ronnie is responsible, mature, Sammy is quite naive and ready to break away. When they get to Atlanta, they actually get separated. Ronnie is taking care of the business, talking to the Red Cross, trying to figure out where they're going to stay. But Sammy goes off and is lured away by someone else, a young woman who takes her into the fold of a small community in an upscale part of Atlanta. So they end up on two different sides of the city. And the name of the book is Running Away Toward Home, because the girls end up trying to find each other in Atlanta and then try to find their father and make their way back home. It's a YA, it's a young adult novel in verse, so the whole novel is told in poetry. And it'll be released in February. I'm really excited about it. And because it's so persona-driven, I asked, and was graciously granted this, that we have a reading here instead of me reading excerpts. You don't want to hear me read. And so we have a performance. So I'm really excited about this. So I'm going to turn it over to the ASU acting ensemble. They have taken the entire book and we've truncated it so it's a shortened version, but you'll get the entire arc of the story through their reading. And I hope you enjoy it.
Good morning. Running Away to Home, a novel in verse by Dr. Lita Hooper.
Swear, Ronnie, everybody on my block is about to die. The news lady is saying, go to the dome. Too late. We've waited too long. The levees have broken. She doesn't even blink when she says it. Every night, I watch the news with Daddy. I know this news lady well. Her dark clothes, her white smile, her stiff hair. Today, urgency swells her eyes. She wants to get off the air, rush to the dome, feel her hair swirl around her round, pale face. I look at my sister, Sammy. She is painting her nails as if she's on a vacation poolside at a resort. Daddy slumps in his favorite chair. His hand barely holds his fourth drink. It's perched on the worn arm of a lazy boy. Jack Daniels has Daddy thinking the dome can wait. Am I dreaming? The living room seems slanted now. Maybe I'm in Daddy's dreams. Wake up, Daddy! I reach out to touch something, try to steady this roller coaster. The air is wet. Katrina has broken the levees, pouring water into the Ninth Ward. She's too real to sleep away. This Katrina. I hear soprano cries from down the street. Or is it the wind? Then silence, the worst kind. Through the living room window, I stare at the neighbors. They do not stop to notice me. They grab children, load black garbage bags into trucks and cars. They pile into anything that moves as the water makes a lake of our street. Little patches of grass in each yard surrender. But Daddy, Sammy, and I hold forth.
Trickle, Sammy. Water is so quiet, ain't it? Even when it creep up on you. You know it's just water tickling your toes. I like the way it feels. Just like the water in the park swimming pool when I dip my feet in just a little. Now our house is a pool. That water is snaking up my leg like an itch trying to mess up my nails. Stuff floating around like it don't belong to nobody. Squishy stuff. Stuffed animals, books, pillows. Daddy is up now. His eyes as red as usual. The water is cold, like a blanket. I don't like being cold or wet. I should go get my yearbook, but Daddy's voice is like thunder.
Samantha, leave that thing. Boom. What you need it for? You in the 12th grade now. Boom, boom.
He don't know this is the first time me and Ronnie have our own yearbooks. No sharing this year. Daddy put some stuff in a garbage bag, and he got his camera bag. He looked funny holding them over his head, yelling at us like we're about to die if we don't move faster.
Come on, girls. Veronique, Samantha, we gotta get going.
I know he don't want to go though. I keep looking at Ronnie, but he won't look back.
Departure, Wilson. That crazy girl. She's trying to take a yearbook when this place is filling up like a fishbowl. We could drown waiting on her. Still, I know why she wants it. I'm thinking about that family portrait that used to sit on top of the TV. I saw it float into the back room. I fight my urge to get it. I know I had to keep something from how we were before today. What's better than a picture of all of us? Today, Veronique is in charge, as usual. No time to spare. The whole 9th ward is filling up with water. Samantha keeps complaining and crying, as usual.
Cross current. Just 3 blocks from our house. We can't walk anymore. A man yells, "Get in!" His rowboat is piled with suitcases, a TV, and a pillow. The TV is tossed for us. Murky water ripples like the waves in my chest. Sammy smiles. She is on a roller coaster. I can see the fantasy in her shiny eyes. Reverend Taylor and some church members are yelling at us from the rooftop of the church. They are waving with their hands like cruise boat passengers saying goodbye. But nobody is going anywhere today.
A helicopter arrives to transport them from the rooftop.
Rescue. The wind hiccups, louder and louder. Now I can hear the choppy sound of air from a distance. The helicopter, Sammy shouts.
They here! They coming!
She is waving one of my shirts high above her head. She is smiling and crying and wiping her eyes and jumping. But Daddy will not move. In his eyes, I can see that missing man look. They circle twice. The noise and wind are closer. The helicopter is like a giant ceiling fan. The guard grabs my wrist with his oversized hand. My stomach flips and I'm giddy like Sammy on her roller coaster. Daddy is in my face, pulling me toward him.
Ronnie, don't lose each other. I said to meet at Summer Hill.
Who? I yell. My hair is flying hard against my face.
The reunion, the ancestors, don't forget.
He shouts. I feel a hand on my shoulder. It's a white man with dark sunglasses. Sammy is already in the helicopter smiling. The white man grabs my hand again. Then I am in the small seat next to Sammy. When I look for Daddy, his back is turned. He looks like a little boy hiding in a closet. I want to reach for him.
The girls have made it to Atlanta. They are at a community center.
What's up? Hey, what's your name? Where you from? Y'all just got here from New Orleans. Where your parents at? They dead. Who you with? You wanna hit this? What grade you in? You got a man. Where all your stuff? I heard on TV that Katrina flooded the whole city. What's a levee? Why didn't you go to the dome? We got a dome in Atlanta. What school you go to? My cousin live in New Orleans. We ain't heard from her yet. You cute. You wanna go with us? You know where you going. Y'all got this song on the radio in New Orleans. Who you listen to? What grade you in? You got some money? You want some of this? You know where you going?
The center of attention, treasure. At the Southside Rec Center, I watch a girl get off one of the buses from New Orleans. She looks all around her like she is in outer space or in North from one of those old and black movies my grandmother used to watch on Sundays. Everybody's talking about Hurricane Katrina. 1,000 people are coming to Atlanta every day, they say. I just came to help out because I didn't have anything to do today. Just came out to help. A nice day like this and I don't have anything to do. I wonder what it's like to lose everything. To lose my nice clothes, Buckhead apartment, Trey. I had nothing before Trey. Just like that song on the radio. I wasn't nothing till I met you. Ooh, girl, you know that's true. The girl's in a parking lot now. She's in the center of the boys. She's so pretty and tall. She looks back at the building at someone she can't leave. I know that look. I like this bench by the court because of the shade. I like to watch people too. Nobody noticed me over here.
Treasure introduces herself to Sammy.
I flex my biceps for her. She smiles like a little girl. Then she traces the straps in my purse with one finger. She asks if I'm a dancer. What you mean by exotic, like a bird? Then just like that, I seen how old she is. I tell her she could come home with me. My place will impress her. You can bring me back, she says, walking backward toward the center. I keep thinking she would trip, but she just turns around and skips away to the building.
Hot and tired. I got to tell Ronnie about Treasure. She gotta meet her. I don't see her nowhere. She say I can go with her, but I know Ronnie wanna go too. She don't wanna stay here with all these people begging for food and money. We can go with Treasure. She can help us. Where is she? She always somewhere reading. It's hot and tired, and I'm not waiting no more.
Gone. Outside the center, the Georgia air is still. I see people walking, standing, waiting, but I can tell their voices are muted by their frantic thoughts. I don't see Sammy. Maybe she thought she could go to someone's house and come back before I would miss her, just like at home. Daddy is always sending me out to find her. I sit down on the bench and wait.
Treasure takes Sammy to meet Trey.
New blood, Trey. What's up? Who's this? Seeing baby girl walk through the door. Makes me think of the red dress Treasure just bought. Yeah, eye candy for sure. Tall and stacked. The client's gonna like her. I tell the girls not to crowd her. Give her some space. I take her to get something to eat. Let her watch TV. Melody takes her to the bedroom to show her some clothes. I bet she don't know any of those labels. This is gonna be interesting.
Hershey Bar. That Trey guy is so cute. Look like them old school R&B singers. Dark-skinned and tall like a big old Hershey Bar. I get a little squirmy in my stomach looking at him. Nothing like my last boyfriend, Devontae. Even has a beard. Devontae ain't got no beard. Hershey Bar is rich. He gave me $100 like change. Ronnie would have left by now. No, she wouldn't even be here. But that's why she don't have no boyfriend. I always have boys calling me back home. I hope Ronnie is still at the center. I'll go back tonight. Bring her a new outfit and the money Hershey Bar gave me. Treasure say I look lovely in her red dress.
Hasina sees Ronnie waiting on a bench outside the community center. Ronnie goes home with her.
Broken Bird, Hasina. The sister looks scared. She could use a friend. I ask her to tell me her name. She hesitates. I don't blame her. I am a stranger, but the Lord has placed me in her path. Just look at that plastic bag. The bus is passing. She never looks up. Bless this child, Lord. I offer her a ride, but she has no place to go. The storm has blown her away from her home. Oh, he works in such mysterious ways. This broken bird has been sent to me for healing.
Easy money, Trey. I get back to the apartment, and those girls are watching TV. I can tell this new girl is trouble. I don't know why, but I can tell. Yep, I just know. I can see some big money coming. Big money. I asked her if she wants to work for me, but she doesn't know what a model is. You go to a party, like an escort, I say.
With who?
Clients, who else? Look, here's how it works. I set up the dates, and you go with them. You get to go to fancy restaurants, celebrity parties, things like that. The girl was clueless. And let's work on that name.
Not home. I don't remember going to bed last night. Just waking up to the sounds of pots and pans and the smell of food. I heard birds chirping outside my window, but my chest was calm. I'm in a strange room, in a strange bed, like Goldilocks in Atlanta. I hear women down the hall. Please let Hasina be with them. I pray secretly.
So lovely, Trey. Trisha was the one who came up with lovely.
She's so lovely.
She said.
She my little sister now.
Lovely like being Treasure's little new pet. Said she never liked her name anyway. You're lovely now. Welcome to the family.
New family. It's so weird when people call me lovely. 3 weeks now and it's still weird. I keep forgetting the answer. What would Ronnie think? Where is she? My mind is like a jigsaw puzzle. I think about my room back home with all my stuff, Miss Jackie's rose garden, Treasure's silly smile, Mama's soft hands, how hot it was on that roof, how mean I was to Ronnie on the bus, but none of it will fit. I wish them stupid girls from school could see me. I got clothes they ain't never even heard of. Versace and Armani and Prada. If them girls at school knew how I was living now, they would want me to sit with them in the cafeteria. I wonder if any of them is here in Atlanta. Mama would like Treasure. She's like my big sister. Trey's like my big brother. Me and Ronnie used to pray for a big brother when we was little.
Angel. The ladies from the kitchen wear white. All white. White shirts, white skirts, white scarves on their heads, white shoes. My first day with them reminded me of being in the hospital. I don't know their language about God, though. My jeans and red shirt make me feel guilty, but for what? I am grateful when they feed me and ask me about church and parents. Their eyes sparkle whenever I talk about New Orleans. Every day I ask them to take me to the center and check with Red Cross. Sometimes they even say yes, but then they look at Hasina. I have left messages with everyone on your behalf. Hasina's voice is as soft as her skin. Nobody has called back.
No pimping. Trey. Crazy girl keep calling me a pimp. I mean, yeah, I come from a family of pimp and strippers. Hell, some of them women in my own family are strung out on drugs and alcohol. Most of my little cousins get passed on from one relative to the other. Not me though, nah. I left my mother's house as soon as I could. She made me a promise that I would graduate from high school. And I did. After that, I had two choices. Become a pimp like my uncle, or work for a music studio as a janitor. This guy hooked me up with a job. My uncle just knew I would want the money from the hustle. But I hate being in the street. Too unpredictable. So I mopped and scrubbed and cleaned other guys who thought they would be millionaires for one song. Now they still hoping and rapping, and I'm straight. Nothing illegal about providing eye candy.
Moving on up. Gigi. My. That's all I can say when I come into this apartment. All up in the white folks' land does plenty. That Trey is a trip and a half. He got these geared girls in this high-rise looking good. I mean, good. Every time I come, I just shake my head. Some brothers talk the talk, but he means what he says. Gonna make some real money without working for somebody else. And look at him. He's got his own accountant, lawyer, and personal assistant. That boy done good. He done real good for himself.
Booster. Hershey Bar is nice, but I told him I wasn't having sex with nobody. Tracy says she has fun at the parties.
Girl, ain't all that. You get dressed up and you hang out.
She said sometimes you have to work the door. That means you have to play hostess. I asked her how much I can make doing this. She said you have to be smart with your money. I bet you have a lot of money by now, huh? She don't know anything about saving, just spending.
Most of the clothes come from a booster anyway.
You mean somebody stole all this stuff?
Girl, ain't nobody asking. You just pick out what you want.
From where?
From Gigi. She comes by every month and you pick out what you want. You'll see.
The girl's father is working and remains sober. He has not stopped searching for his daughters. Ronnie falls in love with Norman, a young woman who belongs with the church. She begins a new life with him in her new church family. She has not been able to locate Sammy, but feels safe and loved for the first time in years. Sammy is not allowed to search for her sister, but she grows closer to Gigi.
Out of place. Those girls are too much for me. Every day they sit around the apartment all made up like they have somewhere to go. Then they hit the club. I know they aren't breaking any laws, but they need to be in school. That's what I tell Trey. He doesn't want to hear it.
I'm not forcing them to stay.
That's all he can say. That new one is sweet though. Lovely. I asked Trey about her family. I know she's not from our neighborhood. And she always looks sad. He looked like he was about to say something nasty, so I started packing my stuff. Sometimes he gets that look in his eyes, just like his crazy uncle. I know that look. Men who have that look don't look at you, just through you. But Trey knows right from wrong. He knows mercy is a step from grace.
Hasina believes it is time for Ronnie to officially join the church and sever ties to her family. Gigi sees Ronnie and realizes that the girls are twins.
Mirage. Back in the West End. Again. Seems like I'm always somewhere I don't want to be. Today I had to get burgers at Al's for Shalise. That's our thing. She studies and I make or go get dinner. I walk across the street to my car, but now I'm staring at Lovely. Wait a minute. Is it Lovely? Looks like her. Same pretty face. I have to blink to make sure. She is sitting in a coffee shop. What's she doing over here? She looks me dead in the eye. Not even a smile. Just like I'm a stranger. I almost yell, "Girl, what you doing here?" Then I think about Trey. His girls can't be caught in the old neighborhood. Look at her clothes. Has she joined the church? The Ark of the Redeemer. I have to go over to get the apartment. Something's not right.
Big dreams. Gigi wants to come by tonight. She always has some scam going on. I don't have time for street games. I've seen that kind of stuff my whole life. I'm not about to go back to small time hustling. I have dreams bigger than my family could have ever comprehend. Yeah, I don't have to be a pimp or a dealer to live them. Gigi doesn't know anything about making real money, about building an empire, and she can keep her boosted. I'm about the business, and Lovely is a good business. This is about to get baby girls to New York, make that money, and that's all there is to it.
Leaving. Tonight, Buckhead is dark. Very dark. Not like the West End. Seeing Lovely made my head spin. Now, I'm making my way to Trey's. I gotta know why Lovely was in the West End. She has the right to go where she wants. But how could she be in the church and work for him? Plus, what if Trey finds out? He is heating up some leftovers for Lovely. It's funny to see him in the kitchen. His dress shirt and polished loafers shine under the kitchen light. Her hair is a mess, and her clothes are wrinkled. Lovely, what's going on here? What are you up to? She looks at Trey. She is scared to answer.
I want to go home, Trey. I want to go back home. I want my sister and my daddy.
Sister? Now I get it. The girl I saw was her sister. I know where she is, Lovely. I can't hide my excitement. Trey steps closer. His cologne rushes my nose.
Where's Ronnie?
She raises her eyebrows and grabs my hand. It feels like I won some bet and the money is about to hit my hand. Trey just looks at me like I'm losing my mind.
Baby girl, you didn't say you had a twin. So she looks just like you?
Lovely looks like a trapped animal. Her eyes dart between us. Trey has to sit down. He's clicking his lighter, trying to figure it all out.
But I was going to tell you, Trey.
Lovely turns to me.
Gigi, please take me to her. Breaking free.
The girls make it back to New Orleans. Ronnie is weak, but Sammy is able to take charge. Summer Hill.
Breaking free. I can see Ronnie now. She looks so clean, so small. I think I can hear him yelling at me, but there's a lot of noise. These church people are singing and getting happy. I'm not scared though. My sister is here and she won't let Hershey Bar take me to New York. Daddy always said Ronnie would take care of me. I should have listened to her. I feel so bad, so dirty.
The girls make it back to New Orleans. Ronnie is weak, but Sammy is able to take charge.
Summer Hill. We have to go to Summer Hill. I just know it. I don't know how, but I know this like I know my own name. Ronnie is so sleepy. She is laying her head down like we used to do in kindergarten when it was nap time. She looked like she wanted to cry or just fall out. She looked worried too. That ain't like her. I tell her that we will find Daddy.
He ain't in the system, Sammy.
She says. She almost shouted at me, but I don't care. Her voice cracks like she want to cry. My mind is made up. I feel Mama behind me pushing. For a second, I think about Treasure and Trey. I wonder what they up to, but I stop my thoughts, because we need to get some help. If we go to the police, then we might end up in foster care. They are still Summer Hill, our home, our land. I stand up and take Ronnie's hand. Let's go.
Home now. A long trailer is parked on the lot. It looks brand new, but it does not welcome us home. I am sure we have made a mistake. I want to turn back, but my legs are so weak. I can barely stand. Sammy shouts.
I told you, somebody start living in our land.
Sammy's feet splash the mud puddle leading up to the door. She runs to the cinder blocks that pass as steps to the front door. I feel my feet sinking like quicksand is grabbing hold of my ankles. Wait! I shout. She doesn't stop. Her umbrella is thrown to the ground. Then the door opens. Daddy stands at the trailer door. He looks older but sober. He smiles brightly, then reaches out to hug Sammy. Was this the same man we left on the rooftop? I stand at the edge of the grass. But then I swear I can see Mama beside Daddy like a soft haze floating mid-air. Sammy is crying so hard, it makes me laugh.
Come on, girl, we found Daddy.
My chest is warm to a smile as Daddy walks towards me. My heart thumps so loudly, it nearly drowns out his words.
Come on inside. You're home now.
Thank you so much. Was that great or what? They were wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And again, I want to really especially thank Professor Lambert. She did the direction. I'm just so honored that they were able to breathe life into those words in such a short amount of time. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Professor Mack. Thank you.
All right, let's make sure we thank Dr. Hooper again for coming and sharing with us. In addition to that, awesome. Let's make sure we do give a good supportive round of applause to the ASU Theater Ensemble. Okay, so next we have, in the next few minutes, we have Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Pitts from the English department. They'll be doing a talk on women's poets and poetry. So you may want to hang tight really quickly, and then we'll get them set up, and you can come and enjoy that. And then after that, we have more people from Tuskegee coming, doing a talk on Frank X. Walker. We have Dr. Zanis Bond from Tuskegee doing a talk on Natasha Trethewey, the Poet Laureate of the U.S., and all kinds of interesting things happening the remainder of the afternoon, okay? All right, so I'll see you all in a few seconds.